It's time for another WrestlePlanet news update, as WWE's thoughts on Tony Khan have been revealed and Khan has responded. We have an update on The Rock's return to the ring, and Roman Reigns goes in on CM Punk and the AEW roster. All that and more coming up in today's video, but first... Tonight, AEW will host their Saturday night edition of Dynamite live from Miami, Florida, with 5 matches announced for the show so far, including Kiera Hogan is set to take on Penelope Ford, Dante Martin will take on Malachi Black after a confrontation between the two last week, the bracket for the World Championship Eliminator Tournament will be revealed, with the finals set to take place at AEW Full Gear, Jon Moxley takes on Wheeler Yuta of The Best Friends, Bryan Danielson will take on one of the newest members of the AEW roster, Bobby Fish, and I kind of expect Fish to get some backup from the Elite, but we'll see how that goes. And the AAA World Tag Team Championships will be on the line, with the Lucha Brothers defending against a mystery masked tag team with Andrade El Idolo in their corner. And if you recall on the leaked AEW Full Gear card from earlier this week, an AEW World Tag Team title match is listed with the Lucha Brothers defending against a team called PTM, which is likely the team set to debut tonight. So if you have any idea on who that could be, perhaps a AAA tag team, let me know in the comments down below. And there's a chance that whoever the opponents will be will take the AAA belts tonight before challenging for the AEW belts at Full Gear. Let's go on to an interview with the former Heath Slater, who is now part of the Impact Wrestling roster following his release from WWE. Heath would appear in an interview with Inside the Ropes this week and would speak about his time in the Nexus in WWE, who broke onto the scene making a huge impact, no pun intended, in 2010. The group was short-lived but are looked back on glowingly, apart from the bad booking towards the end, and Heath would reveal that he hopes to get the band back together, suggesting this could happen in Impact Wrestling, and said, "I would love to get the band together and just have some fun running shots on some big indie spots. So, hell, bring them to Impact. Why not, I know a guy that could probably talk to them, but it's one of those things where, who knows?" But don't get me wrong, there's been promoters out there literally reaching out wanting to get us at Comic Cons and everything. A big signing and all this, which I think is a good start. Get us all together with a chit chat, let's chill. It seems that with many promoters said to be trying to book a Nexus return, whether it be at Comic-Con or in the ring, it could well happen in the future in or outside of Impact Wrestling. There were reports last year that WWE had planned on bringing the Nexus back to WrestleMania, although the specific details on the plans weren't given. But let me know, would you like to see the Nexus get back together under a new name in Impact Wrestling, and what would that name be? Make sure you let me know in the comments down below. And speaking of Impact Wrestling, they have confirmed that New Japan's Minoru Suzuki is set to make his debut for the promotion, releasing a teaser video stating that he is coming soon. Whilst many expected this to take place at the Bound for Glory pay-per-view on October 23rd, it has now been confirmed that he is set to debut at the post-BFG Impact tapings in Sam's Town, Las Vegas, scheduled for Sunday, October 24th and Monday, October 25th. This will be the first tapings following Bound for Glory. Suzuki has been heavily active in the United States this year, working shows for AEW, GCW, PWX, and New Japan Strong, with the 53-year-old coming up short last night on AEW Rampage buy-in against Bryan Danielson. He will be the 6th New Japan star heading to Impact this year, following appearances from David Finlay, Juice Robinson, El Phantasmo, Jay White, and Satoshi Kojima. Last week, former WWE champion The Rock made his rap debut featuring on Tech N9ne's track Face Off. The song would reach number 1 on the YouTube trending music chart and number 1 on the United States rap chart on iTunes. Whilst the Great One's bars were pretty impressive, a certain All Elite Wrestling star disagrees, calling him out in a freestyle on TMZ. Appearing on his weekly Platinum Max Monday segment, Max Caster, who is one half of the acclaimed tag team in AEW, would rhyme about Fury vs Wilder, John Gruden, and The Rock's rap debut. Caster would tell Rocky that his flow Solo is weak, he can't act, and he should come to Dynamite to get a match on. This would be followed up by a tweet from Caster directed at The Rock, calling him out. As expected, there has been no response as of this recording, and it's fair to say that there's not much chance of that happening, although the stunt has gotten Caster some decent publicity. And with that said, we do have some more news regarding The Rock later on in this video, but first, we have an update on the feelings within WWE towards AEW president Tony Khan. According to the Wrestling Observer, those within WWE feel that Khan will lose a significant amount of money in the long run as he tries to compete with them. This is a similar feeling to what they had during the Monday Night Wars when competing with WCW and Ted Turner, with WWE feeling it's not a fair battle with them having to make money whilst the opposition doesn't have to. There's also feelings that Khan has overspent to get into the pro wrestling game. A quote provided by the Observer, said to have been from someone within WWE, stated, "We beat Ted Turner and Ted Turner is smarter than Tony Khan." Following this report, Tony Khan has taken to Twitter to respond to the comparisons with Ted Turner, and he said, "I've never met Ted Turner. It's very possible Ted Turner is smarter than me, but he didn't know 1% of what I know about professional wrestling, or WCW would still be on TNT/TBS. AEW is here to stay." This follows an interview with the AEW boss this week, who stated that he has more money than WWE. And as I've said in the past, I don't feel that comparisons between WCW and AEW management are very fitting, as WCW higher-ups had to answer to Turner executives who hated wrestling and would cut the legs off WCW constantly, whereas Tony Khan, the head of AEW, is a wrestling fan at the top of the food chain. Next up, we have an update regarding the status of The Rock in WWE, who is expected to make a return this year at the Survivor Series pay-per-view. In an update from the Wrestling Observer, they state that plans have fell through and The Rock will not be in attendance at the Barclays Center. The Observer reports that WWE and Rock have been in talks for a very long time over an appearance, but will instead be shooting season 2 of the Young Rock series in Australia. They would also note that quarantine regulations will make it impossible for him to be there. The rumored plans within WWE are to work towards a WrestleMania main event between Roman Reigns and The Rock, with the hope being that this will happen at WrestleMania 39 in 2023. This will be the Hollywood edition of Mania, which is very fitting, airing from Inglewood, California. And quickly, just before we continue, make sure you drop a like on the video as it helps me out a lot, and make sure you subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss any upcoming wrestling content as we head, hopefully, towards 100,000 subscribers. But now, let's press play on the video. And finally, WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns has ruffled some feathers this week with some harsh words for a certain AEW wrestler after being asked about a dream match between himself and the recently returned CM Punk. In an interview with Complex, the Tribal Chief claims that he is open for business if the stars do align, but whilst that's Roman's feelings from a business point of view, he would go on to berate Punk, downplaying his ability in the ring before going on to reference his short stint in the UFC. And he said, "If our audience wanted to see it and they were clamoring for it, couldn't shut up about it, and all the stars aligned, as a businessman and as a performer who was trying to seek out the very best for the audience and tried to captivate, I wouldn't say no. But I mean, on a personal level, it doesn't do anything for me. That's not going to elevate me at all. He's older now. I haven't really seen a full match. I've seen a clip or two, and to me, a step or two has been lost. Then also, he got his ass whooped in the UFC." Reigns would go on to discuss his own sheer size, calling himself a legitimate athlete, before dismissing the rest of the AEW roster and said, "I don't think anybody really believes that someone 200 pounds soaking wet with no explosive bone in their body could ever really do anything to me. I'm 6'3", 265 pounds, a legitimate athlete who can throw some weight around and has been on the gridiron at the highest level, D1 or ACC. I probably would have maintained in the NFL if my health issues didn't happen when I was 22 years old. So I mean, when it comes down to it, I'll throw him and pretty much the rest of that roster out of the club, no problem. They're just little brothers, you know?" It's worth remembering that Roman is very much a worker when it comes to interviews, especially since his transformation to become the tribal chief. And that said, whether you love him or hate him, he is a physical machine, although I do disagree that Punk is missing a step. Whilst the match is highly unlikely at this point, CM Punk did claim earlier this year that he was offered to main event WrestleMania this year before signing with AEW, a match that would have likely been against Roman Reigns, as he main events them all, seemingly. But what are your thoughts on what Roman had to say about CM Punk and the AEW roster? Let me know in the comments down below. And before you go, make sure you check out my video where I rank every single AEW champion from worst to best, including the TNT, Women's, Tag Team and World Championship.